Alrighty, happy No Comic Book Day, geeks, and welcome back to another bonus episode of the Script Heroes podcast. This weekend, we're going to be talking about Stargazer, a 6-issue series from Mad Cave, written by Anthony Cleveland of Charter Mames, Grim Tales from the Cave, and the If Horror Anthology, and art by Antonio Fuso of House of Slaughter, a whole bunch of G.I. Joe stuff, some James Bond, and some Torchwood. The colorist is Stefano Simeone, and the letterer is Justin Birch. Years ago, Shay, her brother Kenny, and 2 childhood friends experienced a traumatic, unexplainable event that left Kenny scarred for life. 20 years later, Kenny has committed himself to the belief that what they experienced was an alien abduction, and the group has since drifted apart. However, the sudden and mysterious disappearance of Kenny leads the group to reunite and discover the truth of what took place all those years ago. Now, heads up, I'm going to jump into a bit of a spoiler-filled recap of the book, just so we can all be on the same page.
We so really remember to give that warning, so I'm so glad you did. This is going to be spoiler-full. Yes, go read the book if you want, and then come back, or just get spoiled by it.
Exactly.
It's free on Kindle Unlimited.
Weirdos who doesn't mind spoilers.
Just go read it.
There you go.
Anyway. Yeah.
We start off with not really a flashback. We end up doing a time jump to the event where Kenny, Shay, and their 2 friends believe that they have accidentally touched Adriana's older brother's acid, like a little sheet of LSD, which I thought was a great framing device. I was very excited by that.
Yeah.
Where they have this skin contact with it, and then they just kind of come to on top of a water tower. Kenny believes that they have been abducted by aliens, and he's 8 maybe at the time, a little bit younger than his sister and her 2 friends. And he jumps off the water tower because he's trying to reach the aliens. He ends up breaking his leg, and it's very traumatic for all of them involved. We jump forward. We see that Kenny is very much still affected by this. He's become a full living in a trailer UFO nut who goes on crazy podcasts to talk about his alien abduction, and is very much a burden at this point on Shay, his sister, who is still kind of, since the accident, very protective of him, and she's determined to, kind of be there for him. But she's hit her kind of breaking point and is going to try to send him to an assisted living facility where he can get actual psychological help, because he thinks he was abducted by aliens. Now, obviously, as readers, we know that, in fact, they were abducted by aliens, because, come on, of course they were. But the story moves on. Kenny ends up disappearing. We see him get kind of a flash of light, and it's oh, okay, Kenny was, in fact, abducted by aliens. But then strange things start happening to Shay. Kenny is contacting her through dreams and memories, and through that, she learns that, yes, they were abducted by aliens, or I guess comes to accept it, because she already kind of knew it. She comes to accept it. She reaches out to her other friends via Dream Kenny's instructions, and they find a scientist who is working on researching these aliens that have been living above the Earth for 20 plus years. And with her help and the help of a helpful alien named Promi, they are able to infiltrate a military facility, which will then allow them to get to the kind of alien thing. And through the power of friendship and love and letting go, they're able to explode the hostile alien force that is going to drain all of the thoughts and memories from the Earth to leave it as a husk. This does end in Kenny's demise. His body is already gone. His consciousness was connected to this alien mind, so it was a show of strength from Shay that she was able to destroy the planet and let her brother go. A nice little kind of pin on her character arc there. But yeah, that is the plot of what we had going on there. Jay, broad strokes. How did you feel about Stargazer?
Oh, this was really cool. It's like a classical sci-fi story. Much in the way, it's interesting because same publisher, and I guess Mad Cave likes this kind of stuff. Like in the same way that like Morningstar is like that kind of classical throwback. Like this is very, very similar vibes there to Morningstar. Which, as we go into potentially reading the last issue of Morningstar, it's a cool thing to be reading this at a similar time. But yeah, it was cool to do more of a classical alien, or read a more classical alien story here. Though interestingly enough, like it has kind of that unique angle of like it doesn't actually really include any aliens because Prome's more of like a robot thing.
Yeah,
like
he's
artificial.
Manifested
they call them
this
sentinels.
Weird alien.
Yeah, and then like the alien is this like hive, very very kind of Brainiac-esque like hive mind alien, which is cool. To have kind of a non-Brainiac because Brainiac's a cool concept, and seeing it like outside of a superhero world is really, really cool. And yeah, I just thought it was really well handled. I liked a lot of the characterization, and the characters are the strength here because the like villain is this like hive mind that you don't ever really interact with, at least not really directly. So it's really much more on the characters and on like the situation that they have to overcome more than like an actual antagonist. So yeah, I think that the writing behind the characters and the just gorgeous art all the way through. So not
phenomenal art.
Yeah, the art's so good. Probe looks so good.
Right?
Like,
the alien design.
My god, like that classical alien has maybe never looked so good. Like,
like they do kind of a take on the like little gray man with like kind of the big bald head and the big eyes, but it looks so great.
Absolutely.
And with the kind of lore bit that the hive mind has made its sentinels look almost human so that they can like be approachable to humans. Which I thought was a really good way of being like, yes, this is why the actual alien is just a ball of, I don't know, glowing technological mass, but the alien that we interact with does get to emote and ambulate.
No, it was a really cool idea to like approach it through that angle, so that they could do a classical alien, but then like not just be doing like Invasion of the Martians. So yeah, it was a really creative way to kind of throw that in there.
Yeah, I think the art was really wonderful in this book.
Oh, absolutely.
It reminded me a lot of the art in The Displaced, like in terms of style. And I really also loved the coloring in this book, because pretty much every page is almost Paper Girls-like, where it just has like a kind of mood to it. Like there's not a lot of kind of, I don't know, like realistic or whatever coloring, because every page is like basked in unrealistic light that gives it a really great sense of ambiance and mood on the page, which I think was a really great choice for a book that is like, it's not you're not supposed to be grounded in this book. It's very like kind of something weird is happening, so it does a good job of removing you from reality stylistically.
I fully agree. But I think that the characters are really what, or at least like I think Shay and it's Henry, right?
Yeah. Kenny.
No, Kenny. Sorry.
Yeah.
Kenny and Shay are the like two, because honestly her friends don't really get
that
a ton. Ariana
and oh geez, Ariana
and Haley.
Haley,
it's the two of them, and honestly Ari, who get
I think Ari is pretty good on the page.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the two of them and Ari are the two that really, which like wildly you actually made it through that summary without really mentioning Ari, who is
right. He's the crazy
such a
podcaster.
Great character in this. Just and like it's a wild thing. Like whenever I read something like this, and I'm like, you have your like conspiracy nut, and it's like but they are helpful because here's the conspiracy that's actually going on. And I'm like, are we supposed to come away with like the blind squirrel, is right, finds a nut every now and then, like, so he got right this time? Or, like, is everything he's saying true, and, like, the earth is flat and hollow, and this man is just, like, so much smarter than everybody? I just never know which angle I'm supposed to go with there.
No, you're right. I think they do a really good job with Ari in that space here, because he's not, like, right about anything. None of his theories are, like, he doesn't really come up with the theories. He more platforms the theories.
Yeah,
because like he's helping Ari or helping Kenny share his story, and he's like got DVDs on, like Jay said, which cracked me up, flat Earth and hollow Earth.
And he decides.
Like, but what if they were both flat and hollow? It's like, okay, Ari, I love you so much. But he also is Kenny's only friend. Yeah. Like, via the text. I'm not bullying Kenny. He only has one friend, and it's this weird conspiracy man. And I think that they do a really wonderful thing with Ari, where at first he is friends with Kenny because he, like, wants to use him for his podcast to, like, share his story and be like, this is a good story for me to tell. But then we see through this that he very much has, like, grown attached to Kenny. And they do, I think that it's one of the most sophisticated storytelling things that they do in this book, where they, like, very slowly peel back those layers on Ari. And it's like, at first he's like, okay, I only was friends with him for this, and then he grew on me. And then we see him taking care of Shay, and it's like, fuck the government, whatever. But he, like, is willing to get shot so that Shay and her friends can get away. And then what I think is really the heart of Ari is when they get to this scientist, there's this projection of Ari's consciousness, or of Kenny's consciousness, and we see the way that Ari interacts with him, and it is so sweet and so wholesome, and Ari ends up sacrificing himself in the end in a way that really shows the layers that he had built up. It didn't feel like he grew into his love for Kenny. It just felt like we were discovering it,
Yeah, I think Ari is one of the high points of this book, which is why I wanted to throw him out there. Because,
absolutely.
To say, like out of the quote unquote four, I guess Ari is the main cast member, but out of the four you might originally, like, look at as, like, I think the book even says on the back, like, these four characters are, like, the core. Out of those four, you look at it and you go, well, two are fantastically written and two are, like, kind of there, and they get a little bit to do. But, like, that would make you think that it's, like, 50-50. I think it's skewed more in the favor of well-written characters when you bring in somebody like Ari there, who's important.
And even, I think a lot of the side characters are well done as well.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, even with the limited time the mother has, like, I thought the mother was fantastically
written. And the doctor, she has a name. It starts with an A. And she's super wonderful. I loved her. But I'm also such a sucker for Dr. El Rhea. I'm such a sucker for the, like, kind of grandma who's, like, I don't know, drunk and knows everything. Like, I love a good grandma character, and she is, in the 20 years later, older. But I'd like to touch on Ariana and Haley before we jump into more good characters, just because I think that they are kind of a low point of the book. Like you said, there's a lot built into them being more central, and I don't know that they have really the page space to deliver on that. Like, we have little, like, crumbs of their story, and I think more so with Haley than with Adriana. Like, I don't know that Adriana really has any sort of arc or even, strong characterization. Like, with Haley, we kind of get the recurring motif of, like, oh, she cheats at everything, or she, like, doesn't earn what she gets. But then I feel like there's not really a payoff for that. I thought it was very sweet, the idea that when they're fighting the big alien, it's like, oh, you have to be ready to jump into one of your memories, but you also have to be ready to lose that memory as the alien destroys it. And I thought that there was not enough of a button put on her being like, let's go to the final level of this video game that I beat without you, because then I'll forget it. I was so ready for there to be an epilogue of the three of them, like, sitting around with a glass of wine and experiencing the last level of the game together as, like, a kind of, oh, the kids are all right type of thing.
Yeah, the fact that happens, like, at the end, like, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because one, it's so perfect to end on Kenny, like, fading away.
Yes.
But the fact that they end there makes the whole vibe of, like, you're gonna lose these memories forever kind of fall a little bit flat because we don't get to see them having actually lost the memories. So there's no actual like response to that, which when it comes to something like losing Kenny, we don't need to see the response because it's so evident as it happens in the moment how much that matters. But with something like memory, it's kind of impossible to show how that's going to affect the characters until it's gone, because it's not gone until it's gone. Like, you can feel like you're losing a person before it's gone, but something like memory doesn't really work as well that way. So it's a double-edged sword, because I think it both ended on the perfect moment, but also would have benefited from us like being able to feel how these characters feel without the memories. So double-edged sword.
And to your point, that memory didn't work super, super well. The bait and switch with with Tara's death memory. So in the year leading up to the present day, Shay had lost her wife in a car accident. And throughout the book, we have these clues coming through that it might have had to do with these aliens. Like, she goes back to the memory and she sees an alien there. And she's like, oh shit, they caused the accident that, like, took my wife from me. And then when they're running from what do they call it? It's like what do they call the big alien? Do you remember?
The big alien? It's like the like high. Oh man, it's like something. It's not
quite the hive mind.
I know, but it's something
sky
mind.
It's the sky mind.
Thank you. I knew it was something mind. I was like, it's something in there.
Yeah, they're running from the sky mind, and the two friends get left behind again in a moment that doesn't quite have the emotional resonance you would want for a book that wanted to push that it's like this 4-person friend group. But then we see that Shay has arrived at the death of her wife, and she's like, no, why would you bring me here? I'm gonna lose this memory. And then we learn that it's not her memory, but Promy's, and it's of him like dragging her out of the car crash. And that was such a good bait and switch. Like, I had fucking chills with like, oh my god, she's going to forget the death of her wife. And then to have that turn and be like, no, this is Promy's memory, and he's giving up this memory and his life so that she can go on. I thought that was a really, really well done moment that honestly
which also,
shocked
like,
me.
Yeah, to push like the well-written characters, get like Promy for being like true, like he's in the whole book and like Flash, but for like truly being in an issue and a half, I want to say, about something in that ballpark, really gets a lot to do compared to these two friends, and is so well done. Because it kind of starts with like this, vibe of like, oh well, Promy is only doing this because he realized he's going to be destroyed, if the Sky Mind, succeeds in destroying the planet. And to go from that, like, which makes sense, he's kind of artificial, so self-preservation motive, to like seeing how essentially by like needing to protect these 4 children over the years, he's like kind of imbued himself onto them in some sort of a protector role that he takes essentially to his, I guess not grave, destruction, scrap pile, to his scrap pile.
To his fade.
Yeah, I think is so ridiculously well done.
Yes.
And that's, like you said, a lot of the like minor characters are so well done, which is why it's a little bit weird that the two friends are, while major characters, have like more screen time than these minor characters, but they aren't able to quite get as much. I think weirdly it's such a good start, because when you get that friend group scene in the beginning, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, maybe they wait too long to really recruit them or introduce them to the story. Maybe they just didn't have an idea of like what their actualness, because like that's my question, like why, like I get that they needed the pieces from all of them, but then like in the end the two of them don't really do anything to affect the conclusion of the book. Like they don't really need to be there the same way that Promy and Kenny need to be there. And in addition to Shay, I was kind of going like in the
fair enough,
because Shay's the main character. I was trying to grab the side. And even the scientist woman whose name I will not remember.
Doctor. We'll just call her the Doctor.
The Doctor. Even like the Doctor plays such a great role. Also, fantastic like conclusion for her there. Like works so well. The two of them kind of just get a little like, we're gonna, grab this memory so that we can harken back to that fantastic opening scene, but not really progress there. And then they're gonna stay there so that they don't actually need to, be involved in the climax. So yeah, I think there's so many great written characters. I think the friends, like, they're not poorly written in a way that like makes the book worse or anything like that. But I think a lot, like, they weirdly serve as kind of like bodies to be the friends. Like they don't feel like they have these individual identities or arcs or anything. So yeah, that's really my only major. I'd actually to harken back to like, I think the ending of it and I think the setup of it and a lot of like the cool things throughout are there. I wish they had made us care a little bit more about Shay's wife.
Yeah.
Like, we get pretty much nothing with Shay's wife. We just get them, which is cool for like the effect, but for the emotional investment, like I think, I don't know, even just like a scene, you know, or like I guess we get the one scene. We get the one scene of her telling, like,
but it's
that's
not
more
exactly
about
like
Kenny.
an endearing
It's more about
scene.
Kenny than it is about her, right? You know, like that one scene of the crowd because they're talking about Kenny. Like, I wish we had gotten a scene with them, even if it was more to talking about Kenny, but something that showed off their dynamic more or their relationship more.
What I was thinking was, because I had the same problem. I'm like, oh, I really like this moment because the Sky Mind projects Tara there and is like, oh, you can not destroy this thing and you can like live here with Kenny and Tara and like be happy. And in that moment, I feel like I was really missing like, I don't know, like a little grid of panels of just like snapshots of their life or something to get that like sense of their relationship and have that kind of like love on the page. Because I know it's there. It would have helped to make her decision to say, no, I've wanted a chance to say goodbye and this is as good as I'll get. Goodbye, and then leaving. I think it would have made it that much stronger if we had that real kind of, again, on the page representation of what she was giving up by not giving up.
I fully agree with you. Like I said, it's not like, it's not that like it doesn't work the way that it is, because it does, but it just works for like a different reason. It really does make it more into a plot point than like like her wife is more of a plot point than a character, which is like fine, but it's just, if you want that emotional investment, which I guess you already have with Kenny, but I just think especially in the scene you're talking about where like the Sky Mind is trying to tempt her, it'd be so much more effective if you like were with her with both of those things, you know. So
yes,
yeah, I fully
absolutely.
agree.
But yeah, that was the characterization of Haley and Adriana was like my big gripe, and my only other one, which I do feel, but I also can see the way that the gears move. I feel like it was a little front loaded. Like we go very quickly, I think, at the end, from all of them are together and they have defeated, or they like go to this military place and defeat the alien. We go very quickly from they all come together to we've reached the end of the book. And I feel like it would have helped with the characterization of the other characters if, pacing wise, we were a little less front loaded, which would, you know, dampen Shay a little bit, but it would have allowed for more of that dynamic at work.
I think the rough thing, I think this plays into what I said with like us not really having an antagonist, and I think that's kind of the rough, is like, I agree with you that it's front loaded, and then we kind of like, or not even front loaded, like, because it's all loaded. It's just that they have to rush at the end because it's all like, it's not like, oh, a bunch happens in the first 3 issues and then nothing happens in the back end, you know. Like, it's just that they don't really leave themselves room for like a long conclusion. But also, I don't know if a long conclusion would have really worked unless they had figured out a more like intricate way of like concluding it, because there is no antagonist, there is no like person for them to go up against, or something. Like, there's this like very abstract idea of this Sky Mind, which is cool, but I think if they lengthened it, might have kind of been exposed as like this kind of undefinable, strange, you know, villain. So I understand why they did it the way they did it, and also it's a little bit of which I will always point out, miniseries-itis, where it's like you have this many issues and it's like, what do you want to do? And you have to choose your priorities. Could you imagine if this was released now? Because I think this is a few years old, right? This is like
2021, I think.
2021. Like, released nowadays and it was 4 issues instead of 6. Like, how you doing that? But
you're not.
But no, I fully get your criticism. I'm just like unsure if I wanted to see a longer conclusion with this
See,
antagonist.
it's not that I wanted the conclusion itself to be longer, it's that I wanted the build up to the conclusion to be longer. Like, I feel like in terms of like the amount of time we spend on things, we get a lot of weight put on that first half where we are really diving into Shay and diving into Kenny and a little bit of Ari's dive as well. And then I think that we kind of get to the depth that we were going to, and then it plateaus just a little bit, and then it gets deeper again as we get to the actual conclusion. But I think that
that's fair.
If we had introduced the friends back into the story earlier, we would have been able to like get the depth from their friendship as well. And that's kind of what I mean by saying it was kind of front loaded, because it's a lot of like Shay front loading.
It absolutely is. That's fully fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
But again, not like a huge criticism. I really enjoyed this book. I think that I distracted us away from talking about Shay and Kenny to hit those gripes real quick, because I figured that we would have quite a bit to say about our main characters here. I think you and I might both be suckers for sibling duos. Like looking at Noctera and now this, it's like, oh, we both love our siblings so much. Hello, sisters. And so a book that centers on a sibling pair, I'm just automatically like, I have imprinted myself and my sister upon this. And so I am going to feel strong emotions about it. And I think that the relationship of Kenny and Shay is incredibly well done. From the inciting incident of Kenny hurting himself while kind of under her watch, like he's a little younger than her, and he gets pretty badly hurt and very mentally hurt by this alien abduction when they're supposed to be out stargazing. We have like a tender moment between the two of them before any of that happens, so we see that it's like Kenny is a part of their friend group, and Shay loves this. Shay loves her brother so much and is like calling him in. It's not like he's an annoying brother tagging along or something. And then the way that the relationship changes, we have a really great flashback when they're looking through each other's memories, where we see that Shay and her friends tried to like stop Kenny from giving a love letter to a popular girl because they knew that she would be a bitch to him. And we see Shay's state of mind of like, oh no, I'm gonna protect Kenny from everything. And we see the slight change of like, okay, I'm gonna protect Kenny, but also he has to like live life for himself. And that really gives us such a solid foundation for where they are at the start of the story, which is him living in his trailer and her kind of like at the end of her rope, because you know that she's been protecting him for 20 plus years.
Well, it's such an interesting vibe, because I don't know if you read it as this, but this is kind of my take on it. Is I think the vibe is she thinks she's been protecting him for 20 years, but in actuality, he's been protecting her, if that makes sense. Like, I think she's very wrong in what's going on, because, like, she sees when she's trying to step in, she's wrong. He's correct about the aliens. And then the entire, like, vibe of this book is him going through her memories and him directing her and what to do, because he actually understands this, and he's actually the one who needs to, like, lead her to the solution. And then he's the one who's willing to, like, die in this, and he's telling her that she has to go through with it anyway and let him go. So I think it's such an interesting vibe. Like, she is in her mind, she makes her friends even promise like, we're all going to protect Kenny, but we don't ever really see any examples of them actually like successfully protecting Kenny from anything. Like, I think that it is kind of a false vibe that she's given herself to like not focus on her own trauma with this and her own issues with this, but she's like, no, I need to protect Kenny, who's maybe actually dealing with it better than she is, because he's accepted it. And yeah, he only has one friend, and he's kind of a weird dude in a trailer, but like, he's figuring things out, and him and his friend are like actually on the right track. So I think on some weird way, the fact that he's accepted it and she hasn't means that he is actually kind of ahead of her in like the development.
I think that I agree with you to an extent. I think that he steps into that protector role. Like, I think that it very much becomes, once he is abducted and his body is gone, then he is able to then kind of do that role reversal with her. I think the fact that she has been essentially doting on him for 20 years is not like
but
actually.
Has she been? Because like, yeah, let me just like the one time we get that is she goes there because he calls her for an emergency, which is him like figuring something out, and she goes, "You keep calling me like this, and like I can't do it anymore." And here's like this place, and like with that being the example that we get of this like her going after him, it's like it seems like every time it was him trying to get her to help him in the acceptance of it. So it's him trying to lead her, and then even before he comes back as a ghost, he's left like these like clues with Ari that lead her there. So I think that he's trying this whole time to pull her into this acceptance, and she's just refusing to get there. And so in her mind, he's this crazy person that she's trying to protect, but he's not really asking her for anything except to, you know, accept what she needs to accept. So yeah, that's where I'm at on it.
I mean, my thing is that as much, it's one of those things where yes, Kenny is right that they were abducted by aliens, but it's also 20 years later. Like,
yeah,
Kenny does not seem to like. I don't know what's going on with Kenny professionally, but Kenny is in a trailer. He's well fed. I don't know that he is giving the vibes of like taking care of himself. And the fact that when she comes, it's clearly the like first time she's been like, here's a pamphlet for a place to send you. I think that that was to lay the groundwork of she has been taking care of him for these 20 years. And she's like hit her breaking point. And we see that a bit in the car scene with Tara, where it's actually Tara who suggests sending him to a home. And she's immediately like, what? No, you know me better than that. I'm going to take care of my brother. And so while I do agree with you that about the alien thing, he is correct. I don't know that.
I guess here's my vibe.
I don't know that invalidates
told,
that she's taking care of him in life.
And here's what I'll say about that: we get told that a lot. We're never shown that like a single time. So
well,
I feel like
the problem is that within the story, the inciting incident is, or I guess not the inciting incident, but like the big thing is that Kenny is gone. Like Kenny disappears.
Yeah, but we get a ton of memories, and like it would have been easy to show a memory of her actually, but most of the memories you see are her like failing or trying to take care of him when she shouldn't be. So, you know, I don't know. I just think that it comes across a lot like she thinks she needs to protect him and she thinks that she needs to be in this role when in actuality she didn't need to be because what he was doing was right and actually was going to save the world. So like you can go beyond just like, because it's one thing to be like, oh, he was right about the aliens, but he was like not focusing on a career and stuff because he was so obsessed with aliens. But then like, and in most situations where it was like, oh, he was just abducted by aliens and these aliens are doing whatever, that would be right. But no, it's not. He was just abducted by aliens and he was so focused on aliens that he couldn't jump. He's focused on the alien that's going to destroy the world and he's focused on saving the world with his friends. So he hasn't been focused on, you know, a job or other things. So I don't know. To me, it comes across a lot like a like faulty mentality from Shay.
I mean, I do think that in terms of, like, I don't think she's good at, we see that with the instant with the love note where she like tears it up. So he's not able to, so I don't think that she's like a flawless protector, but I do think that she has been taking care of him. Even if protecting isn't the right word.
There's also the thing of like her and her friends figuring out that the LSD was fake and then her being like, nobody can tell
exactly.
Kenny this.
And I think that that's like her as a kid doing what she thinks is right. And I don't think that she's correct to stop him, and she doesn't stop him. What she learns from the love note thing is that he needs to like figure these things out on his own. So it's not like she's going in and saying, Kenny, get your head on straight. The first time that she tries to stop him from looking at the alien stuff, even though she's not engaging, is when she's like, I'm going to send you to the home after 20 years of supporting him.
Yeah, I guess the thing is just, it's always rough when they don't, because like, if the memories are like, I can't remember the order if the love note thing came before I think the LSD thing came first, but I think we see it after, weirdly, so like I think that's anyway, whatever it is, like the LSD thing happens, we get that, the love note thing happens, we get that, and then we get the present day. Like we don't get any examples of her like, you know, letting him actually like do it. I think all the examples we get are her trying to stop him and her trying to like exert this will. So I just think it's the thing of when that's what the book's showing you, like that's where the assumption. I tend not to make assumptions that characters are doing different things in the middle. Like I
Well, I
make the
think
assumption that the behavior we see from the character is the behavior the character is always exhibiting. You know, like
I think that the first thing we see in the book of her trying to like of these like taking care of Kenny moments, because I think you're right, protecting is not the right word when I was using it. I think the first time we see her taking care of him is her getting the call from him, her going to his house, and it's clearly the first time she's brought up this like pamphlet thing, and she says that he like can't keep doing this to imply that she's been coming for all of his calls. So I think that very much set the groundwork for me of, oh, she's been taking care of him.
Yeah, but the thing that, because I agree with you that it sets the stage that he keeps calling her about this and she keeps coming, but he didn't call her to take care of him. He called her about the alien thing. So I think that the vibe there of like, he calls her for his needs doesn't really come across. Like, it seems like he's just constantly calling her about aliens is the vibe that I got, because that's what this call was about.
Yeah, but
she says you
coming.
Can't keep it. Yeah.
But like, and that's not what I mean by like it's not like she's she clearly hasn't like stamped out his alien fever.
No, but like I don't know. I guess I don't get what you're saying. Like I don't think she could if she want. I don't think if she slapped him or put him in. I don't think there's any way to like when somebody because he knows. It's not just like he thinks, he knows. Like he is correct and he knows that he's correct in that they were abducted by it. There's no way to stamp that out. Like, you know, just not possible with a character like that, I don't think.
And see, I think that her like tending to him in that way of like he is calling her about the alien thing and she is coming, I think that is a form of like taking care of him.
I disagree, because she's not actually like he again, like he's correct, like he's right to call her. She should be listening. So I think he's more taking care of her than she is in him in that angle. It's just from her perspective. It's like, oh, my crazy brother's calling me and I have to go. But from his perspective, it's my sister won't accept the end of the world and that she was abducted by aliens, and this is super necessary. So I think it's actually that he's trying to get her to accept reality when he's calling her, and thus he is more taking care of her than she's taking care of him.
I mean, first of all, I think I hear you, and you've made a very good point. And what I will say is perhaps they both think that they are taking care of each other, but neither of them is taking care of each other in the way that they need to be taken care of. Because I think that the bigger problem for Shay is that she has like lost her wife, and that is like the trauma that is sitting with her right now. It seems to me that for the most part, the alien abduction of it all, she had a like seemingly normal life. Like her,
my point with like her needing to accept it
was
less about mentally and her needing to accept it because the fate of the world was,
the fate of the world thing. I don't believe that came up until like the day before the story starts, right? Because he's like, oh, they came to me in a dream again and said that it's the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I don't know. I got the vibe that he was kind of like always getting bits, because what the frick is the Sentinel's name? Like Promi, right? Like I don't know. I got the vibe that like Promi was kind of like leading him there for the end of the world, because Promi kind of knew it was up. So I don't know. Maybe you're right on that front, but yeah, I don't know. To me, it felt a lot like it was a like pulling back of the like curtain and Shay kind of realizing that the relationship was kind of the inverse of what she thought it was.
Yeah, and I think that I agreed with you at the top. I think it definitely becomes that once she like is in danger, and then he's, you know, guiding her through that. I think that you're absolutely right that he becomes the like caretaker role, and I think that that's effective because she had been in the caretaker role and she thought that he needed a caretaker role, and whether or not he actually did, who can say? I think that that's a matter of opinion, I suppose. But the fact that it did then switch to him taking care of her definitely was like a great turn on the head of what was going on. And part of what made their sibling relationship so good. And I think it's one of those things where they clearly, with all of the times that he has called her and she has come and she doesn't believe in the alien stuff and he needs her to believe in the alien stuff, I feel like it's a really good example of a sibling relationship where like heads are butting. I don't know, beliefs are different, or like, just you're not clicking, but everything that they're doing is informed by how much they love each other. And I feel like having that at the core of your sibling relationship is like so good for having your sibling relationship be the heart of your book, because they're not siblings that hate each other. They disagree. They maybe think that they know what the other needs, but at no point is it that she like hates her brother. Like, it is tearing her apart to say that she thinks that he needs to go to this like psychological assisted care facility. And I thought that really that relationship at the center of the book really carried it far.
Oh, absolutely. I think we've said multiple times now that really is like the main positive that makes this book so engaging, because it's the majority of the book.
Yeah.
Like I said, your antagonist is kind of like a hive mind, abstract concept type thing that we mainly see through, maybe only see through visions technically, because I know that we see her like actually destroying it, but she's still doing that like
I was gonna say, I think the ball is technically there in the government facility, right?
That there you're right. I forgot we saw it through the government lens. Yeah. At least through Shay's perspective, I don't think she ever actually comes in contact with it at any point, unless
I believe you're right.
Mistaken, because even when she destroys
final spot where she punches it, and I'm trying to figure out if it's vision or
I think it's still a vision, right?
Yeah, because she was like,
she did it through like bringing it into a dream. I think that's still a vision.
Yeah.
But anyway, we usually see it in these very like abstract vision-y things, which typically look really cool. We'll get like a picture like got one panel of like the character's face, and then a huge like splash of this planet-looking sky mine thing that's like so cool. But in any case, yeah, because that's the kind of antagonistic force. It really is this sibling relationship that has to kind of carry the meat. And even like in the climax, like as much as you get that like we destroyed it, like the climax is more focused on her like letting go of her brother than it is on the actual destruction of said sky mine. So yeah, that really is, I think, the core of what makes this such an engaging story, and very effectively so. As we see.
Do we have any final thoughts on Stargazer before we wrap up here?
No, I think that's really my thoughts.
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Shout out to Mad Cave for recommending it in their panel at C2E2, because I was immediately like, absolutely, I'm going to go pick this up.
It was. I think they have one other. I think they have like one other like kind of traditional Alien book, which is interesting that they've done it again. Like I think
they do. Like, look, I'm not gonna fault them for loving Alien books.
No, it's a vibe.
Gotta love Alien books.
But yeah, no, it was cool to read something classical. It's not. I don't think it's typically my vibe. Which actually, like, when I had no idea what the hell it was when you like chose it. But then when I like was. Because I usually avoid reading blurbs before I read it, but for whatever reason, I read this one before I read the book. And as I read the blurb, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like this. Like, this seems so not my vibe. But then I read it, and it was really, really good. So that's.
It's one of those. Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where even when something isn't your vibe, if it's like well done, it's still gonna be enjoyable.
Well, yeah, but this was beyond, like, there's the level of like, oh, it's a really good book, but not my vibe, so it kind of ends up being an okay thing. And then there's like oh, this book is phenomenal, and it's not my vibe, and then it ends up being like, really still good. So I think this airs more toward the latter, because I really, really enjoyed this.
Hell yeah.
And maybe it's like you said, maybe it's because of the sibling relationship being like just something that we tend to enjoy in books, but no, I thought this was great.
Yeah, super fun. As Pangburn, this is your fault. He's the man who was in charge of the panel. But I think that's going to take us to an end on Stargazer.
I think it is.
Yeah, which also means it's an end to our bonus episode. But fret not.
That's right.
Geeks. I guess is what we call everyone. Fret Not Geeks.
You sounded so confused.
It's because I don't normally address the audience when it's not the opening or closing. Fret not, geeks, for there is more Script Heroes content for you to enjoy. We had an episode come out this past week with just our weekly polls, including one of my new favorite books, The Pedestrian. Phenomenal number one. So go take a gander at that. You may have even heard about The Pedestrian. It's been making its way around the indie circles.
It really has.
Yeah. And coming up next Wednesday, we'll have another pull list rec for you. And keep an eye out for next Saturday, where we are going to be doing a tier list of the various teams of the Titans. So Teen Titans, some Titans in there, classic stuff, modern stuff, weird forgotten stuff.
Yeah. I guess the word would be like just trying to emphasize what we mean to the audience. Like lineups is kind of like the vibe of like when it was these people on the team and when it was these people on the team. That's kind of our what we're going to be doing.
Yes,
and we're going to be tiering them. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If you enjoy our tier list videos, which it seems like,
and what teams our Titans know.
I hate that you said that, but. Yeah, if you enjoy our tier list videos, which it seems like you guys do, they tend to be our most successful videos out of everything that we do. So yeah, if you enjoy those tier list videos, that one is going to be kind of a must see because we're big Teen Titans fans. So and just Titans fans because they more often now call Titans than Teen Titans. And we're going to be doing it, kind of as a, I guess, prelude to when we're going to be picking up Titans again under the, the John Layman.
Yes.
I was going to say regime. That doesn't make sense. Creative team.
I like regime. But until then...
See you next week. Comic Geeks.